with like building and renovating, like if I was going to do like a full renovation or build a house, like when would I contact a designer? At what point? Like say I've got my architect and I've got my contractors and all that sort of stuff. When do you guys want to start getting involved? Like from the get-go, or when it's done and you furnish it, or?
That would be early, I'd say, right? You know, because you'd want that help to be working with the architect or with your contractor of putting together the plan of, okay, here's whether it be the actual floor plans or elevations. I mean, depending on, again, there's always sort of a gray area of what the contractor's doing, what the architect doing, what the designer's doing. I mean, I personally like to concentrate more on like the finishes. So say the architect, say on a new build project I was doing, they did all the drawing part. I did pick all the finishes, right? So it's like, I'll pick the flooring and the tile and the backsplash and countertop and handles and all that. And then the contractor implements that plan. So but everybody works a little differently that way, but you definitely want all those people working ideally together early on.
Yeah, like would it make sense that if I was building a place and I was sitting down with you and you're obviously going to try and find out like what I need in the space and all that sort of stuff, like would it make more sense almost to do that and then you can relay that to the architect? Or should I be speaking with both of you equally about the design and what I need out of certain spaces and that sort of thing from a functionality point of view?
Yeah, I think when you're in the works of, you're talking to an architect and you're designing a floor plan, so the architect designs the actual structure. So the interior piece is important because say that your interior, like so for example, the kitchen is the biggest thing. So you do want to have an interior designer in there just to talk through the layout with the architect as well, because it's important to also know like how much of counter space you want, where the pantry is going to go and all that stuff, so that it all works out together. Is it going to be an open concept? Is it going to have certain elements to it where the walls are a little bit closer together? It's really important, like Karla had mentioned, that there's an integrative process. So I like to have a designer in early, and then to be able to talk to the client through the design process while the drawings are being made, like while it's going through the edit phases.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think like in most things, especially real estate too, build your team early, know exactly who you're working with, before you're ready to start pouncing on something and that sort of stuff too, right? So yeah, that's cool. That makes sense. That's all I got.
May look at it from more of not as much designers, in my opinion, look from a more functionality standpoint as well of how the flow of the home is going to be. And sometimes they look at sort of the construction element. They sort of look at like what looks good in that space, not from like how you're going to live in it, but more of like the building way. So that's where I think interior designers can really, really help with that. And sometimes it's, a majority of the time people get interior designers and interior decorators mixed up, because they think, a majority of people think that it's only decor that your interior designers do. They don't realize that we're actually drafting up plans, or like when I was a designer, I had my trusty little, which I have right here, funny enough, a drafting ruler for whatever reason. I don't know why I still have it here.
Just for fun,
just in case I want to get something down to scale.
Exactly. Yeah.
But they think that we don't knock out walls, or you're not drafting up things. So it's funny how there's that misconception of what an interior designer actually does.
Here's a question that somebody has asked. Your opinion on, and I'm just reading this. So your opinion on merging outside and inside, Frank Lloyd Wright style versus new style of staying neutral. Living near a forest, for example, and painting the house white and using a lot of neutrals. So I guess inside, outside, and anyways.
Yeah, I think you have to be aware of like and I think my opinion a little bit differs on this. Like you know, say you're living in a really modern house, then people are like, you've got to decorate really modern. If you're in a craftsman style, then you should have more traditional inside. You know, I think you have to be aware of the type of style of home you're living in and work within that. But I also think that you don't want to betray your own style with that. So if you're in a craftsman, more traditional home and you don't like traditional style, then I think like a craftsman home with a modern or neutral or whatever they want to do, you flair to it. I think you have to be true to your style. So I think you can kind of merge that a little bit. But yeah, I don't think you have to be, you have to match exactly the style of the type of home you have to the inside.
Or
I think you
outside by a forest. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to have that Whistler style.
No, if that's not your thing, no.
Or we also forget that like modern design doesn't need to be like that, you know, what we're used to seeing in certain design magazines where it's like that cold palette, right? It just means clean and type of lines, clean lines in your furniture and certain aspects about that. And also you can add in traditional elements as well too. I think you can design certain elements, you just have to do it correctly. And that's the hard part is combining those designs when you don't, like either you have design or you don't, in my opinion. Either you can see it or you don't. So if you don't have it, that's where, you know, a consult comes with the both of you, right? Is where you can start the relationship with them. If they need something very small, then you guys accommodate to those smaller ones, right? And, you know, sort of bring them back to helping them get to that level of design that they want. But yeah, I'm definitely a believer that you don't need to match exactly what style has been given to you essentially with certain houses and so
because you want it to be true to your style. And I think like going in, you could have a main style. So say you were saying, Glenn, you like mid-century, so you could have mid-century as your main style. Like I call it like a 3-2-1. That's like your 3, like your main pieces are mid-century, but then maybe you like a bit of industrial, so that it could be your 2. You kind of mix a little bit of that, and say your 3rd would be you really like vintage. I don't know. So then you throw in some vintage items, right? So you can mix it. Just stay within a color palette.
That's pretty much me in a nutshell right there.
There you go. I had a feeling. What I do.
No, you're doing quite a modern home. So what style of furniture are you thinking about for your actual house? What do you do?
For my actual house?
Yeah.
Like it's funny that you guys mentioned that. Yeah, absolutely. We, it came down to the floor situation, right? We wanted the polished concrete floor for that real minimalist, modern look. But then we opt out for the doors instead. The doors that's going to cost us half our house. And we realized, you know what, the floors can be changed. And since we're having such hard doors with very strong lines, we're going to warm up the place a little bit more with the hardwood. So I think that's what we're going to go with. And it's not going to be a super modern fort. It's not going to be like a very hard look. There's going to be some warmth in it. And like Karla had mentioned, you really just want to make sure that your color palette is the thing that's going to really streamline everything. So yeah, we're going to have the biggest thing is definitely the clean lines, right? Our furniture will have some mid-century modern in it because that's the warmth that we want to bring into the living room area. And yeah, so it's just really about streamlining your color palette and really not going too much out of that. To really tie everything in.
No, that's great advice.